Funded liability is somewhere between 50 and 150 billion dollars, and that depends largely on the investment and funding assumptions that you want to make. And I don't have the time to go into that, but you can see that's between $11,000 and $33,000 right there for every taxpayer in the state. Healthcare, the unfunded liability is separate, estimated by the Pew Foundation at $66.8 billion. Infrastructure needs are even larger. Now, some of this hopefully is financed by the feds, but Dick Ravitch, the former Lieutenant Governor of New York, and Paul Volcker did a study some years ago, again, something that we at the Fund for New Jersey helped to finance. They estimated unmet infrastructure needs of $130 billion. Add in $43 billion of outstanding state debt, and you have a total of nearly $350 billion of unfunded liabilities. And again, you hope the feds will step in. Some people have said, well, the feds are going to have to help us on the pension issue. And I said, well, I'm not sure the senator from Mississippi or the senator from Wyoming are going to vote to bail out New Jersey, Connecticut, Illinois, three of the wealthiest states in the country. But even if they do, if pension benefit guarantee is any example, they restructure and they slash pensions by about 40%, which is not a wonderful outcome for our public employees who were promised these benefits, and I feel for them because I just don't know. Most of the revenue growth in the state budget recently has gone to increasing pension payments. The lottery has added to the funded ratio of the pension system. So the overall funded ratio as a result of the lottery transaction goes from 44.7 to 58.7, but it could backslide as long as we don't contribute fully or if the investment results are below par. And not all funds are created equal. Lottery money has to be used for education or related purposes, and so the teachers fund got most of it. The judges didn't get any of it, and so the actuaries say that their fund, which is now funded at just over a third of what they need, is going to run dry in 2022, or since we made about 13% in the last fiscal year in the pension fund, maybe we stretch that to 2023 or 2024, and I've wondered how the judges are going to rule when their money runs out. There are a lot of questions about what happens if the funds run dry, and it's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of possibilities, and so the Pension Commission came up with proposals that could make a difference. I outlined the healthcare savings at the local level. If we did the same thing at the state level, we could save $1 billion a year and recycle that money into the pension system in the form of additional contributions. But the unions have said to us there's no nexus between the pension system and healthcare. We've also talked about some changes to the pension system itself that frankly are more progressive than what goes on in the private sector. And we've said a cash balance plan could save an additional $1 billion a year. So next year the state is already supposed to put in about $2.5 billion. These two changes would bring that up to about $5 billion. And that's really about all the funding we need, at least to solve the pension crisis at the lower end of the estimated unfunded liability. And I just hope that we'll have the political will to deal with it. There are mathematical solutions and there are political solutions, and I hope that this conference gives some energy to provide some of the political solutions that we need. And if we don't do it, what I foresee is a gradual decline in our standard of living. The Ravitch-Volcker report predicted a decline in public services, including cuts to our public schools, which are the largest source of discretionary budgeting. And so us being a state that is a great place to raise kids is threatened by all this. And so, as I say, we need to be mindful of the cost per unit of service, the level of services we need. And I've tried with all kinds of different metaphors that whether it's frog in boiling water or tipping point, or I remember when I was a kid reading something about if you were in a rowboat a quarter mile above Niagara Falls in the middle of the river, you could row as hard as you wanted and you were still going over. We don't know exactly where we are, but we're getting really, really close. We have to take this seriously. We have to do it now. And as somebody said to me on the way in, it's amazing what gets us to show up at church on a Monday. And so it's probably appropriate to conclude by saying, let us pray.